Reddit, which type of personality can you not stand at all whatsoever? The kind of person who will tell lies about themselves to impress other people. I had an employee that supposedly helped Guns N' Roses write Rocket Queen, but he never got paid for it. Motley Crue also threw him a birthday party in Mexico apparently, but he had to miss it because he got bitten by a rattlesnake and nearly died. He also saved someone's life in the military when their parachute failed to open. He was able to hold onto them and get them safely to the ground. There must be at least 100 stories similar to this. My favorite was the one he told me the week before I decided we should probably part ways. He tried telling me that he was in a helicopter that was used to fly Saddam Hussein after his capture in Iraq. It's my favorite because I actually used to know the guy who flew that helicopter, and he actually has a picture with Saddam to prove it. It's weird when you lead them on how crazily sincere they sound while telling these massive lies. People who make it a competition of who has it worse. I find this prevalent in the college environment. Like who has the heaviest workload, who's in the most debt, who's the most tired. Ditto for parents who do this. Like nobody who isn't a parent is allowed to say they're tired because they will just scoff and say, oh, you don't know tiredness until you have kids. Like fuck off with that BS. I have 3 kids under 3 and I'm tired AF, but I was also tired doing night shift and going to college full-time 10 years ago, so STFU. Also, like, people with chronic illnesses exist, including insomniacs. I feel insomniacs get to lay claim to a pretty darn respectable level of exhaustion. Insomniac here. While I do agree with that statement, things become trickier over time. For example, in the beginning you do feel exhaustion, but years later it becomes a part of you and you don't notice it as much. Pretty much like tinnitus. Unless you focus your attention on it, it's pretty much like a background noise you tend to ignore. Those always be hustling guys. The guys who try so hard to be salesmen that if you meet them at a party, they're practicing on you, using your name a lot in sentences, trying to be charming to the point where it's painful, mentioning their goals and their mentor and their prospects but not really divulging details even when pressed, unless you agree to meet them for some sales pitch. Anything about hustle, the grind, or my personal favorite, building my empire. Instant eye roll. To these people, if you have to try to be charming, you aren't. Also, if everyone can tell when you're pitching a sale, then you aren't a great salesman. Obviously you'd know if a car salesman is trying to make a sale if you're in a car dealership lot, but I'm talking about everyday situations. Those who can never be wrong. Bonus points for people pretending to be experts of something that they know nothing about, just to win a conversation. I know all about that. Probably much more than you. So, yeah, well played. I have a friend like this and he's argued with me over such trivial things. I like the NFL quite a bit, but he clearly has little interest. He'll literally argue with me about certain plays or players. Like, just admit you don't know what you're talking about, dude. I have never once met somebody who unironically describes themselves as sassy who wasn't a completely self-absorbed tire fire of a person. I have never once met somebody who unironically describes themselves as sassy who wasn't a completely self-absorbed tire fire of a person. Except for this lady. I love you for posting this, cause when I read the word sassy my mind immediately went to her. The Keeping Up with the Joneses types. They spend as much money as they can to make others jealous of their possessions and oftentimes, to their own financial detriment. Don't have to hate them because they're already miserable inside. My husband and I are friends with a couple like this, but it doesn't stop at material objects. They paint this picture of a perfect family and life, when in reality their lives are a mess. They post on Facebook like a happy couple, but in real life they constantly fight. He cheats and they see each other only 2 days a week. They're constantly spending money and buying the newest coolest thing, but they're in crippling debt. They have a developmentally delayed child and constantly post on Facebook about made-up milestones because they're afraid of people thinking that their daughter isn't perfect. It's sad to see people who are so completely addicted to the approval of others. Someone who talks but does not listen. On top of that, someone who talks over you when you are trying to talk. Ugh. I caught myself doing this once and felt terrible when I realized it really was a habit of mine. I have been putting a lot of effort into keeping my trap shut and listening instead of just waiting for my turn to speak. It's been working pretty well. By default, I listen more than I talk. However, I've been in conversations that are basically 98% monologues by the other person, and oftentimes I still get cut off or talked over in the small amount of time I do get to speak. I'm also occasionally told that I'm quiet or seemingly not very engaged, but mostly it's because more often than not, so many other people won't shut the fuck up that they all end up trying to talk over each other, and I'm not about to join in that mess. There are way too many people who are in love with the sound of their own voice. So sometimes I find myself ranting, and it's not because I love my own voice, but because I'm scared that I didn't say something interesting enough or worth responding to, and then I just end up in an endless cycle of talking and talking with no direction. Working on it. People who are in any sense proud of being mean or assholes. I can forgive anyone for being a jerk in some regard. We all struggle with being as good a person as we could be. But someone who not only accepts their worst tendencies, but revels in them? I don't care for that one bit. Often those self-proclaimed assholes/bitches are the ones who get the most offended by anyone who remotely treats them like they treat others. Being considerate is hard. So I never bothered. But I see all of you seem to do it easily. Why are you being less considerate of me all of a sudden? There may be an element of narcissism involved. There's probably a name for it, but I'm having trouble thinking of it. But when someone gives you too much personal information when first meeting. Hi, I'm Helen. Would you like a glass of water? Some juice? I always cater to guests as that's how I've been raised. I'm just a classic Southern girl and hospitality is my thing. It's how my mother raised me, so I'm just always like this. It was just my mother and I because my dad was a drug addict and extremely abusive, so I don't have a great relationship with him. Anyways, here's your glass of water. Welcome. Oversharers? Sounds about right. Thanks. I work in mental health, and one of the downsides is whenever I go to a conference with colleagues, you can bet your ass there is at least two of these people at it. Sometimes they even consume the day, attempting to overshare each other about who has had the shittiest experience, prevailed against adversity, can be the most inappropriate in a formal setting. I have honestly not been to a single course where someone hasn't told me all about their childhood abuse over morning tea. Like, I'm sorry and all, but it's 10 a.m. and I just want to eat the free muffins in peace. It's the people who think smoking weed is a personality trait. Everything about them revolves around smoking weed. I personally smoke, but I've never been comfortable around the people who make their whole life about it. This also extends to any one thing around which everything revolves. Be passionate about your hobbies, interests, ideas, beliefs, what have you, but it's exhausting to be around someone who is all one thing all the time. I see a lot of this with anime. I'm personally indifferent to it, but some people just live and breathe anime, manga, etc. It's all they ever talk about, and it honestly puts me off of watching more of it, which is a shame. There's lots of casual viewers. But it's just one of those hobbies that's latched onto by people that have nothing else. I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you have a similar story, share it in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more. Have a great day, or night.